Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this very important webinar on how to, revolutionize test automation with AI and low code. We are very excited to have you with us today, where we would be exploring ways to achieve and improve test coverage with lower effort. I'm Shambhavi. I'm a product growth manager at BrowserStack and your host for today's session. I have been associated with BrowserStack for 3 years, and I'm currently leading the product growth initiatives for our low code testing solutions. Joining me is Rajesh, an expert in the field of low-code testing at BrowserStack, leading the product initiatives for the low-code testing solutions. Rajesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, thanks for joining everyone. I'm Rajesh. I'm working as a product manager for local automation. Uh, I've associated with ProjectStack for 6+ years now, and I started my journey as a QA as that, having solved like complex automation problems and transition to product to take all the technical knowledge I gained over the years and like build an amazing product to solve a very interesting problem that we have of automation without coding.
Great. Thank you, Rajesh. Now, before we begin, here are a few housekeeping items. The session will run for about an hour, including 15 minutes reserved for the Q&A at the end. This session will be recorded and the recording will be made available to all the participants. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Zoom Q&A box and we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the agenda for our session today. So the webinar is structured to give you a comprehensive understanding of low-code testing and also introduce our in-house solution, which is BrowserStack Low-Code Automation. Then we'll go through the detailed product demo, where we'll also cover some best practices that we have ingrained into our product. In the next segment, we'll talk about AI and also accessibility testing, which we have integrated within the product. And then we'll wrap up with, what's in store for us in the future, which is the product roadmap. We'll also end the session with the Q&A section. So yeah, let's get started. Let's start by acknowledging a reality that we have all seen. A traditional test automation relies very heavily on code-based tools like Selenium. While that is very powerful, these tools require specialized technical skills. That is, you need skilled developers or QA engineers, which isn't always feasible at scale. So this leads to three major challenges. First, automation becomes hard to scale and maintain. Second, you see a delayed ROI. What I mean by that is you're investing early, but the returns come in much later. And third, finding skilled automation engineers is becoming harder and costlier. And all of this creates a friction in delivering faster and more reliable software. So this is where, low-code testing helps. Low-code testing can help you adopt test automation faster, which is like with faster velocity and less effort. So if, say, you're doing a lot of manual regression, smoke and sanity testing as well, that will eventually slow down your releases. Then there are non-tech experts like business analysts or product managers who would like to chime in with the testing, but they do not really know how to code or they do not have that in practice. Third, the test coverage is low and it takes too long to build automation. And lastly, your tests are flaky and you're spending more time fixing them than building or writing new ones. To use a low-code automation solution, you can just download a desktop application and create and run your tests in, under 2 minutes. It's basically not like a standalone product, but it's more of a platform in itself, wherein you can do functional testing, record your tests, use AI assistance for your test steps, and do all kinds of validations as well. You don't really need to worry about any test execution because it's available for you out of the box. You can utilize our cross-browser testing capabilities to test on a wider number of platforms as well. So yes, with that, I'll now hand it over to Rajesh to take us through the product and the capabilities. Rajesh, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Shambhavi. Sure. Screen. Yep, I hope my screen is visible. Sure. So this is a desktop application that you can download from the low-code automation homepage. Now, as part of the demo, what I'll do is I'll quickly record a workflow on the website calendly.com, where I'll log into the website, I'll add some validations, I'll create an event and add another bunch of validations. And then you'll see how seamlessly you can automate this entire end-to-end workflow without having to write any kind of script, right? So you'll see a bunch of options right below the URL here. So you can record your tests on browsers, desktop browsers and mobile browsers both. You'll also see different resolution options. We support various resolution uh, on the app. So if you are using even a higher screen size, you'll see more options in this list. Advanced options, I'll come back to this later because it's slightly more it's useful for the more advanced workflows. So as soon as you click on start recording, you'll see a recorder panel that gets launched, and it will open the URL calendly.com, right? So now as soon as you see the recorder, you will see like different options that are available. I'll walk through some of these in detail. So now automating the workflows is as simple as performing those on the browser directly. So just like you do as part of your manual testing. So I'll click on login button. I'll enter my email that I use to log into the Calendly website. I'll add the password. Right. Now you can see that the recorder has automatically captured all the steps that I have used to log into the website. So clicking on the login button, entering the email, entering the password, and then clicking on the continue option. Right now, right after the page loads, you can add various validations. So one very basic validation that you can do is, whether an element is present or not. You can also use the up and down arrow keys to expand your element selection. So element presence, what it does is it basically checks whether the element of interest, the element that you're recording, in this case, the side panel, right after logging to the Calendly page, whether it is present or not. It doesn't necessarily validate the contents of it. Now, if you want to validate the content, you can make use of the text and visual validations. So if you do a visual validation, it primarily checks the visual aspects of the element. So what it does is it basically takes a screenshot. Now under the hood, we use Percy as the visual diff engine and the powerful engine that uh, helps you find out visual differences and avoid any kind of noise in the screenshots. Now we took a screenshot. This is the baseline screenshot going forward. So whenever we execute the test, it will again take a screenshot and compare it with this baseline. Right. So you can also perform text validation. I'll show you how. So let's continue with the further workflow where I'll create an event on Calendly. I'll select one-on-one. Now I might want to validate that as soon as I try to create a meeting, the default validation, the default name of the meeting is new meeting. So I'll add a text validation on this element, right? And then I'll maybe want to change this name to something else, saying LCA webinar. And then let's select some time as 60 minutes, right? So you can see the recorder has automated the flow, and you can see like very plain English-based descriptions that any non-technical person can easily understand, right? Rightly pointed by Shambhavi, where it's not just automation testers, it's primarily built for people who do not have much technical experience and still want to automate their workflows without having to learn any kind of scripts, right? So yeah, this is how you can record the workflow seamlessly. Now, I'll also talk about some of the best practices that you can leverage to ensure you are automating your workflows reliably that work as and when the application changes as well. So for example, so starting with very basic things, I'm trying to enter the password to, let's say, my production environment, which I do not want to disclose to anyone. So I can convert this into a secret and give this name saying Calendly login password. Now, once you create it as a secret, no one can see what the value is for this password. And here you seen like I've typed LCA webinar as the event name, but you can choose to even use some type of random functions. For example, apart from LCA webinar, I would also want to add a function which generates a random 4-digit number. Right. So every time the test gets executed, it will generate a random 4-digit number, and then eventually the event name would be LCA webinar and then some random 4-digit number. Now, you Yeah, so you can also convert this into a variable as well, right? So you can give this a name called as event name, and then use this variable further in the steps and import it to validate against any text content on the website, right? Uh, Now, what one thing that I would also like to emphasize is when you record your workflows, we capture various attributes of the elements and not just like one single locator. So unlike other tools or other, like in the script based world, you end up writing a script saying driver.find element by ID, by CSS, or by XPath, where you give a single locator. Now it becomes challenging to maintain this test when some of the attributes or some elements get updated on the page, but the application functionality is still the same. So here's where the local automation recorder uh, becomes extremely useful. So we not just capture like one single locator, we capture a bunch of attributes, the parent element and all the other details, and then make use of these attributes during execution to find the element reliably. So every time the step executes, we try to find the element, and we have our own element selection algorithm in play, which is backed by AI-powered self-healing as well. So I'll quickly save this recording. I'll give this a name saying Calendly create event. You can also assign some tags, Calendly login regression, right? And as soon as I save and run, whatever visual validations that I've added as part of this recording, all those screenshots will be processed and sent to Percy for setting it up as a baseline, so that when the test gets executed, it compares against that baseline and then gives you a visual comparison on what exactly the visual differences are, right? So you'll see the entire replay happening. We also take screenshots at several steps when you're trying to execute the test. So you'll see as soon as you click on the login element, you'll see the screenshot. We also highlight which element it clicked on during the replay so that you can easily identify where exactly it is trying to click. If there are multiple bunch of similar elements in the page, you can see which element it tried to click on during execution. So now it is trying to take a screenshot of the Calendly logo and then getting the visual differences. And you can see the comparison if there is any. So if there's a huge difference in your visual screenshots, you can see it directly by clicking on the compare screenshots button. So if you click on this compare screenshots, you can also see that currently there's no diff, but had it been changed to some other color, you'd see a difference highlighted in red color directly, right? So we executed this test and we'll go back to the test listing. And now also talk about a couple of other best practices where we would want to automate workflows with different data set combinations, right? For example, logging into the Calendly website, I want to test it with different type of user roles. So I want to test that user who has an admin access or who has very standard access can log into the website and then create events. So I want to test that workflow with different login username and passwords. So instead of recording a different test again for the same workflow, you can simply go to the test that you want to run for different dataset combinations. And for example, I want to log into the website with different user roles, right? So I'll import a value from a dataset, and I have like some predefined datasets here. So I'll use, let's say, this username and then gmail.com. And then for password, I'll use the password field for that. Okay. Now, every time the test runs on cloud, it will run for all the combinations that are present in the dataset. Now, you can also save this. So now how do you upload the dataset? So you can simply go to the data configuration tab. There's an option for test dataset. You click on add dataset, you upload your CSV file, and it's like a very example of dataset CSV where I want to test with different login credentials to Calendly, right? So if I add more rows, when the test runs on cloud, it will run for all the rows that I have specified in the CSV file. Now, other thing is around reusable steps. We often tend to use certain set of steps across multiple workflows, right? For example, logging to the website, like checking out a product, right? Entering credit card details and everything, right? So these are like some of the common workflows common steps which you might need across various testing workflows, and you do not want to record them again and again. So what you can simply do is just go to the test and select those steps and just create it as a module. Okay. So when you record new workflows which you want to log into the website, you can simply import this module without having to record it again, right? So these are some of the best practices that I would wanted to highlight here. It's a reusable module, so you can make use of these modules to reuse set of steps across different testing workflows. You can make use of the test data set to perform data-driven testing, like executing a set of scenarios across various different data combinations, making use of variables and functions and secrets for managing your sensitive data and credentials. Now you just saw how seamless it was to automate your workflows by making use of the recorder. Now, the recorder has like a lot of capabilities. So the past few months, we have built support for various types of uh, automation workflows, uh, like involving making a database call and validating or extracting something from the response, or making an API call, or you know, uh, even maybe writing some JavaScript snippet to trigger some function on your application. Uh, but where do things start getting trickier is the dynamic workflows or more complicated workflows, which are not easier to automate by the recorder, or even like traditional script-based automation. It requires a lot of time to automate those. Like a couple of examples, as you can see on the screen, is selecting dynamic date inputs. Uh, so for example, if you book an appointment or book a hotel uh, on booking.com or Airbnb, right? So you'd want to always ensure that you want to select the dates in the future, so that when the test gets executed every day, you don't end up selecting the date that has gone in the past, right? So you want to select the dates always in the future, irrespective of when the test runs. And a couple of other examples, validating that the results are sorted in ascending order. Now, this becomes trickier to automate. In script-based, you can, you have to extract the values for each of the results. Now, the results could be dynamic. Today, it might be showing 3 results. Tomorrow, it could be showing 10 results, 15 results, etc. Now, the results are dynamic, and you would want to extract the prices or the prices of the products, and then compare whether they are sorted in ascending order or not. Now, this could become challenging. Now, these are few examples which are complicated and dynamic in nature, or these are easier to explain to anyone, but when it comes to automating those, it becomes very challenging, right? This is where we have built the AI-powered authoring agent, uh, which helps you automate these workflows just by describing them. You don't have to record any additional steps. You just describe what you want to achieve as an objective, and then record it as a step, as an AI step. So every time the step gets executed, it will use AI to understand the application context, and then execute. Now let's look at the demo for this. So for this, I'll record a flow on, say, some website, kayak.com, where I try to book a flight for dates in the future. And then based on the flight results, I want to validate that the flight prices are sorted in uh, like the cheapest flight first, right? So I'll book a flight from Bombay to Delhi. And here you can see there's departure and return date, which could change. Today we are in September, so you'll see the dates for September and October. But when the test executes in October, November, December, the dates keep on changing. Now, in order to select any dates in the future, you can simply describe that in plain English, saying enter departure and return date as in the next month. And then you click on perform. So AI will try to take the context of the application, understand the objective that you're trying to achieve, and then also give the reasoning behind what it is thinking in order to achieve the objective that was specified. right? So here we are trying to enter the departure and return date in the next month. So it identified that today we are in September, so it has to click on October date input fields. Right? So it will click on some random dates in the October month. And every time when this specific step gets executed, it will make use of AI so that as and when the application context changes, AI will automatically adapt to that and then execute the step to make sure the test executes reliably. Right? So it completed the execution, and you can also see the reasoning behind the steps it took to select the dates. Right now, you can proceed further, and here you'll see the list of flights along with the prices. Now, what I'll try to do is I'll try to sort it on the ascending order of the prices. So the cheapest flight should be shown first, right? So you can see the results are sorted in the cheapest flight first, right? So I'll add a validation saying validate that the flight prices are sorted in ascending order of their price. That is cheapest flight first. So it will again try to take the application context, check what are the list of flights present on the screen, extract the flight prices, and then validate whether they are sorted in ascending order or not. Now, one interesting thing is most of the AI agents that you might have seen, those work on the available viewport, the current viewport that you see on the screen, which means it only validates uh, what it can see currently on the screen, which are just the 3 flight results. But with BrowserStack's AI agents, we check the entire page, right? So we just don't look into the current viewport, but we look into the entire page here. So you can also see the AI thoughts here. So there are multiple flight results ranging from 9951 to 10473 below in the screen, and all of them are sorted in ascending order. Right. So this way you can make use of AI interactions to automate your dynamic or complicated workflows, which are not easier to automate in the using the recorder, right? So click on it. Yeah. Now, there are some best practices as well for this low-code authoring agent. When it comes to AI, there is always some level of non-determinism, and which can be solved. So these are some of the best practices. For example, instead of describing each and every click that you want to do to achieve the objective, just describe the goal that you want to achieve. In our case, we wanted to enter the departure and return date in the next month. So that is the objective that I want to achieve. So don't describe that, click on date input field, click on 16th October, click on next month, click on 17th October, so and so. Describe the goal and not just the individual clicks. The AI agent works well if you specify a better objective and better goal. Try not to be vague. Some examples like just validate text, right? Now it could mean anything on the screen. There are too many things present on the screen which have text components. Be very specific on what you want to validate or what you want to perform. Give that context to AI. Make use of the on-screen text and visual cues, and base your prompts on what you see and interact with on your application. Now, what I mean by that is instead of saying to AI that click on sign in button with data test ID as login, right? So you're trying to work the actions with some attributes for that element. So instead of specifying what you cannot see on the screen, specify what you can see and interact with on the application, and base your prompts on that, right? And this agent is support built to support the dynamic use cases and more complicated use cases. For simpler static browser actions or validations, you can make use of the recorder. Recorder is very powerful today. It has a lot of features inbuilt to cater to various kind of workflows. For very dynamic workflows, I would recommend for you to use AI authoring agent. Now, one last thing around this best practices for agent is uh, this works very well if your objectives are short and concise, and has appropriate context. If you try to give a very big objective that covers your entire end-to-end workflow, uh, it might not lead to very accurate results. So try to base your prompts, break down the bigger objective into a bunch of smaller or medium-sized objectives. So instead of specifying everything in a single prompt, break those things down into 4 or 5 different prompts, and then specify those as the objectives. We'll move on to the next stage where we'll talk about the accessibility testing and how you can seamlessly integrate accessibility into your low-code tests. Now, accessibility, you know how important it is to test for accessibility of your websites, and at the same time how challenging it can be, right, to automate those workflows. So BrowserStack has made those things simpler for you. We have a accessibility product where you can download the extension, uh, embed that in your browser, and you just navigate to your pages. You don't have to perform any additional steps. You just navigate through your pages, and it will automatically scan the accessibility issues for you, and then give you a consolidated report uh, at the end. Right? You can also, if you're having any automation scripts already in place, you can also integrate that with BrowserStack's accessibility automation, and then you can run those checks and then see the reports in the accessibility dashboard. Now, one step further, what we have done is we have made things even simpler, wherein now you don't have to perform any additional steps or write any additional scripts to automate accessibility checks. You can do that seamlessly in your existing tests that you have recorded in low code. Now, how do you do that? You can, let's say I've recorded a bunch of tests for my functional flows. I go to create test suite, where I'll select the test that I want to run as part of this suite. So let's say I'll create a smoke suite here, and then select some tests. So you'll see an option for accessibility testing here, wherein you can enable this setting, and then you can select the appropriate rules that you want to run against, right? And then save this test suite. So now whenever you trigger this test suite, uh, along with the functional flows, you'll also get the result for your accessibility flows. So I have a uh, build for this. Let me this. So let's say this is the build that was triggered sometime back, and you'd see an accessibility report here, right? When you click on this, it will take you to the accessibility page where you can see a detailed list of issues on different elements across your pages, right? So you don't have to perform any additional checks or add any additional validations in your recorder. You can simply create a suite and enable the toggle to run for accessibility checks. So this is how seamlessly we're trying to integrate various types of testing with low-code automation. So you can perform accessibility, you can perform visual testing, you can make it the visual validation feature, but we are also working on bringing a integration, direct integration with Percy, where you can just run visual checks across various steps in your tests, and then you can see a consolidated report of all your visual checks on the Percy dashboard. Right. Yeah. So you want to also go over the product roadmap, right? But before that, we'll also like to launch on the poll to see whether you are interested in trying this product out in the free trial and automate your workflows using the recorder. So you'll see a poll on your screen. If you're interested in a demo and a free trial for this product, you can select relevant option. Good. So we'll move on to the product roadmap. So these are things that you're planning to ship in the upcoming months. The roadmap we have categorized into 3 broad themes. One is AI agents, mobile testing, and end-to-end test platform. So in terms of AI-powered authoring, we already seen the AI interactions feature, which is live in production. You can try that out, record your workflows, dynamic and complicated workflows. Uh, what we are trying to also add is support for variables in the prompts. As of today, you can only specify the prompts in plain English, but you can't import any variables within those. But we are adding support for variables as well in those prompts. Uh, Currently, the AI interactions feature is only supported on the desktop browser tests. In the upcoming quarter, we are also will be also adding support for mobile browsers, wherein even on the mobile-based tests, you can leverage AI interactions to automate your dynamic workflows. Now, in terms of the non-AI features, so we already have API step wherein you can make an API call, and if the response is a JSON format, you can extract something from the response or validate that response. Now with this, we are also adding support for XML based responses. So even for the XML responses, you can extract or validate those. With respect to validations, we already have launched support for file metadata and content validations. So as and when you automate your workflows and you click on any option that downloads a file, automatically a step would get recorded in the recorder, which will validate that the file is downloaded, which you can further customize if you want to just validate that file name is so and so or file type is so and so, right? Now, if the file that you downloaded is a PDF or CSV, you can also validate the content of the files. So just like uh, you know, automate your normal web browser, file content validation is as simple as that. So you can simply open the file that you have downloaded, and then it will open it in a new tab, and then you can just add validations and perform actions just like you do on a normal web page. We also added support for database calls. You can make database queries for MySQL and Postgres. In upcoming months, we are also adding support for more types of databases. And in terms of execution, as you've seen, you can create a test suite and trigger it directly out of the box in cloud. But with rerun, what you can also do is you can, as and when the tests are running on a scheduled manner, you can also automatically trigger rerun of the failed tests. And even we have added support for rerunning your failed test manually. So when you click open any build, you'll see an option to rerun the failed test again. Now, in case that some of the tests had failed with the application server being down for some period of time or some third-party tool issue, and once you fix that, you can simply rerun those failed tests and then see whether the stability of the build is good or not. The other interesting feature that we're adding as part of the test suite is block-wise execution, wherein post selection of tests that you want to execute in a suite, you can also decide which tests you want to run in a block. So you can say that, okay, run all my P naught test cases first. And if those fail, don't execute the further tests in the suite. So those kind of configurations also is something that you can achieve with the block-wise test execution, which we are planning in this current quarter itself and will be rolled out in the month of September. In terms of governance, we're adding support for geo-region restriction for the Europe region. And in the upcoming months, we'll add support for other regions as well. And along with that, the role-based access control, wherein you can provide granular control over what role can perform what type of actions on the product. As part of the maintenance, test maintenance, as I mentioned earlier, we already have an element selection algorithm in place powered by AI-based self-healing. So you don't have to do any additional maintenance from your end if there are just minor modifications on your website. Now, along with that, there's another interesting release that we did recently. Now, as I mentioned, we have this element selection algorithm, which is a rule-based algorithm, basically. Now, the problem is that one algorithm can't fit for all the websites that are there on the web, right? For some websites, they might be using IDs as reliable and unique values, but for some other websites, the same ID attributes would be dynamic or are unreliable for automation purposes. Now, what you can do is with the element selection feature, we have given you the control to tweak the algorithm based on the application attributes that you find reliable or unreliable. For example, so if you open the app in your project settings, you see an option called as element attributes, wherein you can say that, okay, for all of my URLs for which the test gets executed as part of this project, I would not want to use class as a attribute to find the element. So you can mark those as unreliable. You can also add more granular configuration, wherein if you want to just specify that for one URL, class is an unreliable attribute, but for another URL, say class is a reliable attribute. So this way, this gives control for you to tweak the algorithm in a way it works for your application. So this is a very interesting feature, and obviously this would require some inputs from your developers if you do not have any expertise on what are the attributes and how do you identify whether those are reliable and unreliable. You can also click this link to check the documentation and yourself identify which ones are meant as reliable and unreliable for automation. Moving further, uh, we have added support for projects, but there are cases where uh, people want to move some of their entities from the existing projects to newer projects, right? So we're adding support for entity movements across projects, which could mean moving your modules, moving your data sets, moving your tests from one project to another, copying them from one project to another. And in terms of best practices, global variables is already live. Passing variables to modules, this is something again useful when you'd want to make use of that single module, for example, the login module, but want to use different set of credentials when it runs in different tests. So I have a test for admin role and I have a test for say normal non-admin role, but I'm using the same module to log into the website, but the credentials are different, right? So this way, by the module parameterization feature, you can even pass those dynamic variables in your module so that you can make use of the single module across multiple tests, which can use different variable values based on which test they are running from. And then database as a source is basically, you have seen the CSV way of performing data-driven testing, which is more static. For example, you upload 50 rows, it will run 50 rows during cloud executions. But if your values are dynamic, that is, you want to fetch the rows and columns dynamically before executing the test on cloud, you can make a database call and then fetch those and then run against those set of rows only. And then in terms of testing types, you have seen how seamless it was for performing accessibility testing. We're also working on adding support for visual testing. And in terms of reporting analytics, we are working on integrating with BrowserStack's own test reporting and analytics product, wherein you will see all the build insights, various categories of uh, fields, for example, unique errors, flaky tests, all the build stability numbers and everything, so that you can share those reports to your respective stakeholders. And we have also launched support for public URL in case you want to share the build URLs with someone who is not part of the BrowserStack account. You can enable public build URL and share that URL so that even they can debug despite not having access to BrowserStack. And finally, the out-of-the-box integrations, we already have support for all of these test management tools, but those are mainly around, you can map your test cases, but you need to download the JUnit XML file and then run some CLI commands to publish the test reports. But with these out-of-the-box integrations, you don't have to do any additional step. You just simply have to map your test cases from your test management tools to low-code tests, and the results will be automatically published in the respective tools. So the support for this out-of-the-box integration is already live for test rails. Currently, we are working in for BrowserStack's test management and Azure test plan. And in terms of bug reporting, we have released support for GitHub and Azure DevOps to log your bugs when you analyze your build reports. I think there was a question around, can we integrate with DB validation? Yes. As I showcased in the product roadmap, the database support is already there. So you can go to the database section, configure your database if it's MySQL or Postgres, and then integrate in your tests. Like make a database call and then extract or validate from the response what do you want. how parallel execution for test suites are supported. So low-code automation comes with currently two plans, Essentials and Pro. With the Pro offerings, by default, you get 5 parallels. So if you run your suites on cloud, by default, 5 tests would be running parallelly every time. Uh, but if you'd want to increase the parallels for even faster test execution results, you can even contact our sales team and then they can help you get with more parallels. I think there's some of the questions around the mobile apps. So just some good news for all of you as well. I think in the previous webinars as well, we have highlighted that we are currently working on support for mobile apps as well. So we are launching a alpha release for mobile apps, local automation for mobile apps, mostly by end of this month itself. So if you are interested in trying out the alpha uh, release, you can let us know. We can get in touch with you, showcase a demo, and then give you a trial access for it so that you can share the feedback and then we can iterate over it. So yes, mobile apps, low-code automation for mobile apps is already in progress. And then you will soon see an announcement once it goes alpha, beta, and then GA. So yeah. Here's one interesting question around, could you have Excel file with numerous tabs as a data source with numerous relationship? I think the use case is more around you have multiple tests where you want to make use of the test data, which you are maintaining in a single Excel file maybe, and the data maybe keeps on changing, for which you just don't want to go to each and every test and update those, but simply update the Excel file so that it can automatically take those values when the test gets executed. This is an interesting use case that we have also identified from some of the customer feedbacks. And this is something that we are considering for the upcoming roadmap as well. But we would love to get in touch with you to understand the use case in detail so that it will help us identifying the right solution so that it solves different use cases for this different use case for this problem. So yeah, it's a very good question. And yeah, it's something that we are also considering. And maybe we'll soon maybe receive an email from me or one of my team members around this use case. Will the recording of the webinar be shared to the participants? Yes, post the webinar ends, you will receive an email for the recording links. Other existing integration with Jira. We do have Jira integration for bug reporting. If there is something else that you're looking into, can let us know. Integrates with Jenkins, yes. So on the documentation page, if you go to the CI/CD section in terms of integrations, you see a bunch of tools you can integrate with. But these are just like some of the examples, some of the tools wherein we have directly given you the scripts. You can just copy paste the script and then uh, run it in your pipelines. So what we do is we expose a couple of APIs which you can use to integrate with any CI/CD pipeline. So it's not just these 8 to 10 CI/CD pipelines, but if you are using anything beyond this as well, you can make use of the API calls and configure the pipeline script accordingly to trigger the test suite and then get the build status back. If you need any help in creating the pipeline script, you can reach out to us and we'll love to help you out on creating the pipeline script for you. There are questions around load performance testing. Is it possible with low code? Not today. Uh, Primarily, currently, the low code automation recorder focuses in solving the functional aspects of the workflows. Uh, we are incrementally adding support for like accessibility, visual testing, etc. Load testing is something we already have a separate product for that, um, which is, I think, in alpha. You can type BrowserStack Low-Code and you might see a documentation link. But yeah, there's a product for load testing, which is in alpha. And maybe in the upcoming future roadmaps, we can maybe potentially integrate that as well with low-code so that you can uh, do performance or load testing with your already recorded tests. So short term, no. Long term, maybe yes. Calendly is part of BrowserStack. No, I'm just using that website for demo purposes till they tell us not to use it. But it's like just a demo website. It's not part of BrowserStack. Can it handle multi-factor authentication? Yes, this is one of the things that I also wanted to highlight. Um, Now, the thing with multi-factor authentication is there are various types of multi-factor authentications. One is you receive OTPs in your email, you receive OTPs on your mobile phones, or you have integrated your login with authenticator apps like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. Now, for the first part, we already have email workflow testing, wherein if you are trying to sign up to a website or log into a website, which requires uh, extracting the OTP from the email and then using that to log into the website, or clicking on the confirmation links to proceed further with the login. Yes, you can achieve that. So in the documentation, there's a section for test email workflows. If you navigate there, you'll see how you can automate your login or sign up workflows, which involves emails, extracting or validating the emails seamlessly. With the interest of time, I don't want to demo this, but you can refer this documentation and see how it goes. With respect to SMS or other authenticator apps, now we do not have out-of-the-box support for those, but one way you can achieve multi-factor authentication is one, we have support for API calls. Now, some of these authenticator apps or the SMS OTP verification services like Twilio, they already expose these APIs which you can make use to get the OTPs. So you can make use of those API calls and then make that API call from the recorder and then extract or store the OTP in the variable and then use that to log into the website. As a best practice, what I would recommend is if in your staging environment, you're trying to log in with SSO and all the other things like reCAPTCHAs and everything, mostly disable those. But if that is not feasible, we also have an option for advanced configurations, which I mentioned earlier. I'll get back towards this. So we have support for headers, cookies, and local storage. Now, in order to deal with reCAPTCHAs and other security softwares like, let's say, Cloudflare, which doesn't allow bots to perform actions on the browser, what you can do is you can make use of the request headers and pass those request headers when you're trying to automate the tests. So you can say a request header, let's say, and then some value, let's say test automation. And what you have to do is you have to use this key and value pair and then configure that in your application or your Cloudflare service to whitelist it so that whenever the test runs via local automation, this header will be applied automatically. And since this is whitelisted on your application or your service, you won't face the problem of the bot traffic and even reCAPTCHAs, right? So CAPTCHAs technically are not meant to be automated. So in the main purpose of introducing a CAPTCHA is to avoid any automation running on your browser. So it's not, as a best practice, not meant to be automated, but you can make use of this request headers to bypass those CAPTCHAs and still have those in your application if you want to test it manually, right? Does it provide test execution result to the user in the form of a report? Um, Today, you can download the JUnit XML report, but as I mentioned in the roadmap, we are working on integration with the test reporting and analytics product of BrowserStack, wherein um, you will be able to download the entire build report in the form of a PDF, or you can even create custom dashboards that you can share with your leadership team and respective stakeholders. So yes, today, provides you with some form of reports, but in a few weeks time, the whole build results page will be revamped, and you'll see more and more um, features that you can use to get advanced level of reporting and insights for your builds. Yeah, I think we are almost around time. There are a few other questions as well, which I wanted to address, but the interest of time, I won't be able to take everything, but I'll answer one last question. Do you have limits on amount of AI actions per test or test suite? Currently, yes. Since these AI agents are uh, like in the beta stages, there are some limitations on how many steps you can add in a single test. Uh, but we are aggressively moving towards making these agents GA with the better accuracy and better coverage. Post pitch, these limitations would also be removed, and then you'll be able to also record more AI steps in a single test. Currently, you can only record 5 steps as part of your test. But in a few weeks' time, those kind of restrictions will be removed, and you'll will have some fencing around how many executions or whatever value metric it is in the usage of AI features in the product. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. I hope it was interesting and maybe there are a lot of takeaways for you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us via the support or contact pages of BrowserStack. And see you next time.